One function of the muscular system is movement. Muscles can only pull on bones to create movement. This means that they must work in pairs. They enable us to complete day-to-day movements such as walking. These are known as voluntary muscles as you can control their movement. They are able to contract, which causes the muscles to pull on the bones as they shorten. They also work quickly and with power, however the skeletal muscles can tire easily. Muscles also support the body's posture, even when we are unaware of it. When you're sitting or even just standing, your muscles are contracted to maintain the posture. The skeletal muscles are continually making fine adjustments which hold the body in stationary positions. The muscles tend to be long and cylindrical and are able to fatigue over time. This could happen when we work anaerobically, as there is a build-up of lactic acid. You may not think it, but our muscles help us with respiration. This is because, as we inhale, our diaphragm flattens and contracts, which increases the space in our chest cavity. The muscles between your ribs also help enlarge the chest cavity. They also contract, pulling your ribcage both outwards and upwards when we inhale. Heat production is another function of the muscles in our body. Muscle contractions in fact produce heat in our body and can be as much as up to 70% of our body heat. When our body notices it is below a certain temperature, when it is cold out, our body starts to shiver. It does this because it is our natural way to maintain homeostasis. Skeletal muscles begin to shake in small movements. By doing this, your body is expending energy and creating heat. Another clever function the muscles are able to do is the constriction of organs and vessels. This is more commonly known as vasoconstriction and vasodilation. During vasoconstriction, blood vessels constrict and restrict blood flow to other parts of the body that may not be working. It is a natural part of your body's balancing systems. During vasodilation, your smooth muscle cells in arteries cause an increase in blood flow. When the blood vessels dilate, there is an increased amount of blood flow due to a decrease of vascular resistance. The muscles are also responsible for the heart contraction. The main muscle used, the cardiac muscle tissue. The muscles are only found in your heart and they never fatigue, as they have regular and rhythmic contractions. The myocardium is the muscular middle layer of the wall of the heart. It is made up of spontaneously contracting cardiac muscle fibers which allow the heart to contract. The heart contraction is an autonomic, involuntary function of the peripheral nervous system. Finally, communication is also enabled due to our muscles. This is because our body sends impulses around our mouth which gives us the ability to move our mouth. However, your vocal cords are the muscles which allow us to talk. The vibrations produce sound waves that travel through the throat, nose and mouth, which act as resonating cavities to modulate the sound. Next, we move on to characteristics of muscles. There are 4 types of characteristics of muscles. One being excitability, another being contractility, extensibility, and elasticity. Excitability is the ability of the muscles to react to a stimulus, which may be delivered by a hormone or a motor neuron. Contractility is the ability for the muscles to forcefully shorten. This may occur isometrically or isotonically. During an isometric contraction, the muscle doesn't change length or shape. For example, this could be seen in a handstand in gymnastics, whereas the isotonic contraction is when the muscle does move and change length. For example, a press-up. Extensibility is the ability of the muscles to stretch beyond their resting lengths. Muscles can be stretched about 3 times their contracted length without rupturing. This is important because in a lot of coordinated movements, antagonistic muscle operates such that one is lengthening while the other is contracting. Finally, we have elasticity. This is when the muscle stretches and then is able to return to its natural resting length. If this does not happen, there would be a slack in the muscles, which means there would be no tension, therefore unable to produce any force, and then they become useless levers. Types of muscle tissue: cardiac, smooth, and skeletal. Cardiac muscles are structured to be branched. This allows the impulses to spread between the cardiac wall better. They also have a striated appearance and are found within the myocardium. Skeletal muscle tissue is also striated in appearance too. However, smooth muscle tissue is not. Cardiac muscles are involuntary working muscles. This means we do not tell our heart to beat. However, the smooth muscle and skeletal muscles are both voluntary. Our cardiac muscles contract while we are unconscious. This is what makes them involuntary. The cardiac muscle's main function is to keep the heart ejecting blood through the involuntary movements. It does this through specialized cells called pacemaker cells, which control the contractions of the heart. Whereas the smooth muscle function is to determine how much blood is flowed through the arteries. They can also move food through the digestive tract and regulate airflow into the lungs. They are controlled by the autonomic nervous system or endorsing system. On the other hand, the skeletal muscles have lots of functions, one being support and another being movement, controlled by the tendons attached to the bones which produce the movement, and even homeostasis. Now, cardiac muscles are relatively small, with usually one or two central nucleus and are found in the heart, whereas skeletal muscles are attached to the skeleton and are the biggest muscle tissue of the three. Finally, the smooth muscle tissue is found in the walls of most visceral organs and is smaller than skeletal fibers. Cardiac muscles are non-fatiguing, as they must work your whole lifetime to keep you alive, as does the smooth muscle tissue. This means that they are able to constantly function. However, skeletal muscles are non-fatigue resistant. This could be due to the exercise, as lactic acid builds up, which further inhibits anaerobic respiration, which includes the muscle fatigue. Now we move on to the skeletal muscle gross anatomy. Our muscles are made up of lots of connective tissue, tendons, blood vessels, and within the skeletal muscle there are lots of different muscle types. Connective tissue also offers the body support and strength. It also offers a range of flexibility. There are three main types of connective tissue, one being epimysium, another being perimysium, and the last one being endomysium. The epimysium's main function is to prevent the friction from muscles and bones. The perimysium plays a role in transmitting lateral contractile movements. And the endomysium is a thin layer which helps to provide an appropriate chemical environment for the exchange of calcium, sodium, and potassium, which are essential for the excitation and subsequent contraction of a muscle fiber. Inside the actual muscle, there are layers around a bundle of muscle fibers. The bundle is called a fascicle, and the muscle fibers are also known as the perimysium. Deeper into the muscle, the layer wraps around an individual muscle fiber by connective tissue called endomysium. A myofiber is a muscle fiber which has lots of nucleus. And a myocyte is simply a muscle cell, and inside of a myofiber there are lots of myofibrils. They are all essential for the structure of the skeletal muscles, as a single skeletal muscle fiber may be made up of hundreds, maybe even thousands of muscle fibers, all bundled together and wrapped in connective tissue covering. Each muscle is surrounded by a connective tissue sheath called epimysium. Each muscle fiber is innervated by only one motor neuron. The group of muscle fibers innervated by one motor neuron is called a motor unit, The size of the motor unit can vary depending on the nature of the muscle. Muscle roles. The synergist helps prime movers and adds force and stabilizes the joint. They facilitate a fixed action. Some examples of synergists are the brachyradialis, which is located in the forearm, and the brachialis, which is located deep in the bicep brachii. Insertion is the point of attachment in a muscle where movement occurs. It is usually diastole, which means it is the point furthest away from the center. For example, the hand is diastole to the shoulder. A fixation is a muscle which stabilizes the origin of the agonist, which immobilizes bone and helps stop any unwanted movement or hold a body part in a fixed position. The origin is a fixed attachment and is normally proximal to the center, and it is where the tendon ends. The agonist is the prime mover, which means it is the main muscle which does the work to allow the movement. The antagonist contracts to allow movement, and it lengthens in size and restricts movement.